Thank the board for the feedback. Okay, last month the board's School Choice and Facilities Committee had a conversation similar to the conversation we had about Achievement First, considering a high-performing school within our portfolio as a potential replication model. I'm going to ask Dr. Perry and anyone that he wants to bring up, where we did a full presentation to the board at that committee meeting. So I'm going to ask Dr. Perry in a few minutes' time to just give a high-level review of what was discussed and presented, and this is really being brought back to the full board so that there's an opportunity for additional questions to be asked as you consider adopting this as a model to replicate in the district.
Thank you, Superintendent, board members, Your Honor, the Mayor, and the back three rows of colleagues who've had the chance to come out this evening. I am Steve Perry, the principal and one of the founders of Capital Prep, and I'm here today as principal and dad, as two of my sons are probably in the bathroom doing something to keep themselves entertained. Good. Thank you. Somebody keep an eye on them. I wanted to take a couple moments to reflect upon some of what we discussed in our last meeting, and where possible, expand so as to create the opportunity for further information. Capital Prep is a year-round college preparatory school, grades pre-K 3 to 12. We're a magnet school with a theme of social justice, high expectations, and a college preparatory curriculum. But I think what's most compelling about what we do is that we've designed a school that operationalizes love. And what that means for us is we create multiple opportunities for students to engage in a meaningful relationship with the faculty. So one of the reasons why some of our faculty are not here is because they're coaching or heading up some after-school activity, as well as being advisors and the like. Capital Prep's success as a school has created a regional, national, and international reputation for us. We've received visitors from as far away as South Korea and Armenia, different parts of Europe, the Caribbean, many places throughout the United States. Virtually all of the continental United States have sent either a visitor or asked for information about how it is that we've been able to do what we've been able to do with students from largely historically disadvantaged populations. And I think what's most compelling when we talk about the conversation around replication is what Greater Hartford itself says. Last year, 4,710 children applied to Capital Prep. Our first acceptance pool was about 70, and after that about 120 total. So there's a interest within the community to participate in an academic experience that engages the heart and mind and encourages children and adults to push themselves to create an academic experience that means more than just learning how to read, write, and compute, but takes the term social justice and makes it real. Each senior has to participate in a capstone project. And I think one of the things that, from a model perspective, is worth noting is that there are many firsts that occurred at Capital Prep. Everything from being the first high school in Hartford to go year-round to being the first school to have full-on uniforms. Beyond that, the advisory system, creating a new way of identifying teachers to engage them in such a way that they became members of the solution, not simply recipients of policies. We have professional learning communities throughout the school in which every single person participates. Each teacher has what we call a individualized teacher plan, an ITP. Beyond that, every student has an individualized learning plan. So the expectation is to create an enriching environment that engages children, and so this model itself has many layers of engagement of the students, the faculty, and the community. And it's working. Since we began, Capital Prep has succeeded. We've sent 100% of our graduates on to four-year colleges. We have one of the highest graduation rates in the city and have since we opened. We began with about 120 students, and it's worth noting that while our performance has remained virtually the same, our numbers have not. We began, I said, in about 150 students, and in the years since 2005 when we opened, we've grown about 100 students a year at least, up to about almost 700 now. Yet our performance has not changed. We've had some ups and downs in certain grades, but overall, you look at OSI, we've been in the same basic quadrant for year after year. You can take a look at our class of 2014. One of the things that I think is worth noting is that unlike what some people tend to think, many students come to Capital Prep among the lowest performers in the district. People sometimes think that that we get students who are already there. But what you see in this particular slide is that we didn't. And many of them moved up. I wanted to also point out that one of the biggest challenges in education, public or otherwise, is the achievement gap. That's the performance difference between African American, Latinos, and whites and Asians. This is the difference between the way a black child and Latino child performs in a school versus what a white child or Asian child performs in the school. Well, at Capital Prep, there is no achievement gap. In fact, it sometimes is inverted, meaning that our African American children, in many cases, outperform even our white children. Similarly, there's very little achievement gap even between issues of economics. So we've found ways, my colleagues and I have found ways to solve for some of the most pressing issues in education. And I think what's also very interesting, if you get a chance to take a look at this, if you look in towns like West Hartford and Middletown, Windsor, Hartford, and if you were to go to towns like Greenwich, you see that African American children perform significantly lower, as well as Latino children, than their white counterparts in the same schools. But at Capital Prep, that's not the case. And in fact, in many cases, our African American Latino children outperform the students in the wealthiest suburbs in Connecticut. That's because our team has worked really hard to create a compelling academic experience, so compelling that even though our school year is 201 days, significantly longer than the rest of the district, our average daily attendance is over 96%. Over 96%. So when we begin school on July 5, that means that almost every single child who attends Capital Prep is there. That means somehow they make a decision to forego family reunions, trips home, or just opportunities to go spend time with their friends at an amusement park to come to school in a full uniform, sweater vest, tie, khakis, shoes, belt, and a rigorous academic experience. They come because of those folks behind me. As talented a team as they are, their interest is to take what we're doing and to replicate it. It's why Capital Prep has, at current count, 11 individuals who will have their principal certification by year's end. These individuals who have been trained by our team to develop the shared leadership model, to create opportunities and to push one another, take on leadership roles that are not paid, that are not identified as something of a job change, but understanding that each one of us has the responsibility to lift our weight. So we're hopeful that Hartford sees it fit to take what has begun here in our fair city and replicate it in our fair city. To keep this team together, to use its resources, its learned resources, to continue to address some of the most pressing issues in education: achievement gap, retention, graduation rates, and college acceptance. I'll close here. I mentioned that today I'm here as principal and parent. All the data in the world can be used to tell how good a school is. All the conversations about buildings and locations and structures can be brought to bear. Well, the one statistic that I'm most proud of at Capital Prep is virtually everybody who has a child and works at Capital Prep sends their child to Capital Prep. So at the end of the day, we can speak about the services because we also are responsible. When I got one of those robocalls saying that my son had skipped school, I got to flip out just like the other parents. But I got to use the system in the same way I called my son's advisor, because you know you don't believe your son first. And I got to call his advisor, and his advisor said, no, I'll check with the other teachers, and that's exactly how the system worked, not just for me, but that's how the system works. And I get to see that, and that's exciting. So when we talk about replication, we're simply saying we just want to give Hartford what we get for our own children. The same love and respect that our children get every single day, we want to be able to extend that, because the worst part of this job is having almost 5,000 families trying to get into a school and knowing they're not getting in at all. Standing out at bus duty and having parents stop the car, because folks in Hartford they will stop a car on Main Street and come over and say very clearly, what do I have to do to get my child in? Final part is this. A couple weeks ago, we were at the ING run. A young man came up to me. He said, I'm number 1001 on your waiting list. He said, but I'm getting closer. That's not why we started Capital Prep. That's not what this is about. We did not come here to run one school and exclude other children. We want to present this opportunity to as many families as want it. And Hartford has made it as clear as they possibly can by every single year making Capital Prep the school that most people apply to, that they want another Capital Prep. So when you give us the opportunity, we will do everything we can to make sure that you're proud that every child gets the same education that our kids do.
Dr. Perry, thank you for that overview and presentation. What is before the board is an additional opportunity to ask questions that you have as you consider this. The process is such that this is a conversation today. The board can then take this for action as an action item on the business agenda on November 19th. Mr. Chairman?
I just have a couple of questions, Dr. Perry. What you describe is at Capital Prep is a solution to virtually everything that public education struggles with. So you've overcome all of it. Overcome the issues around poverty, you've overcome the issues around absenteeism, you've got 100% of the youngsters going to four-year colleges. You know, only principals in many places across the country could wish that they had that kind of performance. So the question in my mind is if in fact you have found a way to eradicate all of the issues around public education that swirl around us all day long. You heard some of it just before in the last conversation. We also know that Achievement First has a 5-to-1 ratio on applications at their school, the current school. So there's a demand for these schools that are the top performing schools in the city. So why do we keep struggling? Why are we struggling to maintain schools that are not performing when right within the city we have a model that does it? I find it very frustrating to hear you, not that you're frustrating, but to hear the story of the success, and it's the success we all want for our children, Chronic absenteeism, you're generous enough to send me what yours is, 0.8%. So what you said earlier, kids don't take prolonged vacations, the parents get them to school, they're doing all of the things that's not happening in the other schools. So 0.8 is no problem whatsoever with chronic absenteeism. So, you know, why don't we just have the model virtually all over the system? I mean, that's a question for me. It's about cash, I assume, right? It's about being able to fund it. But if your model works, then why aren't we just adopting this model everywhere? Why wouldn't the board just say, this is what we should be doing? I mean, I know your answer might be, but talk to me about that, because I
can talk
find
to you about
pretty...
it. It might take a minute. No,
Yeah,
I'll say this. I think what's most important is to understand that a model is a design, but the execution is in its talent.
Sure. Yep.
I am the luckiest person in education. I have the most talented team, period, hands down. I put them against anybody who's going to educate a child tomorrow morning. More often than not, I have to walk by rooms that these folks are in. I mean, most of them are still at school now, and ask them to leave. I have a very talented team, and they love what they do. And I think it speaks, the fact that by the end of this year, 11 individuals are ready to run schools has shown that we've been readying ourselves for the opportunity for replication here in Hartford. It's what we want to do. But I'm not going to be able to keep this team together forever. Yeah. I can't keep telling them, okay, you're not really the chairman of the English department. However, what I'd like you to do is work with your colleagues on helping them do their lesson plans and doing all these other things. I can't keep doing that. They're too talented for that. And
let me just ask you a question, though, about that. Is the model and the execution of that model that you have today, given the team that you've got, Camelot? You know, is it you happen to have a great team? As you take on another school, what are the challenges that you would face to replicating that team? Well,
we've identified individuals on the team who are ready to go.
Okay.
And we've been positioning Capital Prep for the transition. And in the first year of any school, specifically, let's say we were to take over a school that's not performing, there's going to be some transition. Mm-hmm. In many of the schools that are being considered, we're talking about, in at least one school, 7% of the 7th graders in math at goal. That's low. That's virtually no one. Right. So there will be blood. In the beginning, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for everybody. I am, however, profoundly confident that winning is a habit. Behind me is one of our founders, who's also our cross-country coach, who this weekend brought to Hartford the first cross-country state championship ever. When you give folks the room and they bring the will to win, they'll find a way to win. I'm not the least bit concerned about that. I really am not. I am profoundly confident because I've seen what they can do. Mm-hmm. And I don't, this is not some sort of, I know how good they are. And the data only backs that. So, and I think it's also important to note that an organization is defined not just by who you keep, but by who you don't. And we're here for kids. Mm-hmm. And we make that as clear as possible. So by virtue of the design, I'll give you a very brief background. There are things that we've done with our school that are based simply upon, there's nothing revolutionary. I wish there was something really revolutionary about it. All we've done is taken what we've seen work in other schools and mash it together. When I visit other schools, my colleagues will tell you they get hundreds of texts throughout the day saying, why are we not doing this? How is it they're able to do this and we're not able to do it? We don't do conferences. I send my colleagues to schools. If you want to see something, go see it. I don't want to send you out to Vegas for 2 days so you can go to, I want you to go, if there's a school in Vegas, then let's do that. So it's the constant learning that they're doing, and that's them. Mm-hmm. I want to make it clear. That's their decision. But we've created an environment within which that can occur. At the end of the year, not only will our students do their senior social justice project, which we're the first in the state to do these capstone projects, not just in Hartford. We were doing them before the state considered them. Our teachers are now doing them. It's called the Creative Symposium, and it's based upon what we saw at the University of Hartford's doctoral program. One of our faculty had done that, and it's basically a show and tell. This is what my dissertation is about. So they're doing action research themselves based upon the strategies that they think. By creating this environment of constant learning, you can foster that. In addition to that, if we're given the privilege to operate another school here in Hartford, these schools will work together. I'll share with you very briefly. We had a conversation on Friday with our seniors, and we explained to them that we may be in a position to operate another school. And we'd had the conversation with the parents earlier in the week, but we talked to the seniors on Friday. And to a child, each one of them said it's the right thing to do. They said they have friends and family who've tried to get into Capital Prep since they've been in 7th grade and they can't get in. And what I said to our children is, don't think for a second because you wear this blazer that you're born smarter than anybody else. You just won the lottery. And in this country, your trajectory of life should not be determined by a lottery ticket. And we've trained you differently than to just take what you're getting and to be so proud of it that it becomes hubris. That you understand that to be Capital Prep means to give this to somebody else. You're not just doing a social justice project to graduate. It's really got to be what you're about. And so it's these multiple levels of engagement that will occur. So we'll work with the other school. We'll have the same days that we'll have staff meetings. We'll have shared planning opportunities. We'll use our colleagues between the two schools so that it's not just starting from scratch. We'll use them between. We'll use Capital Prep as the foundation for training opportunities and vice versa. Because were we given the opportunity to operate one of the schools that's already in existence, I'm confident that there's talent. I'm confident that there's talent in the building. And we'd invite some of them to be a part of our team. And we could learn a great deal from what they're already doing in the school. There's talent in every building here in Hartford. Great talent. Many of the folks that you see standing behind me or sitting worked in Hartford schools. A couple of them were bumped out because of seniority, and we just so happened to get them. Mm-hmm. So,
great. Good. Any other questions? Did a good job. Thank you, Dr. Perry.
Thank you.